up, legendary bitch? Got a very special episode where today got Willie with me. He's an Arkansas native, corporate America. He's also on the board of directors for a nonprofit organization. I'll pitch back up over to you and let you give your own background.
Hey, what's going on? My name is Willie Hansberg. I'm an Arkansas native, Southeast Arkansas, Arkansas City, Arkansas, real small town in rural Arkansas. I'm on the board of Arkansas Immigrant Defense. I've been on the board there for a couple months, and so yeah, it's been an exciting journey so far.
Okay, so how did you come to be up on the board?
So actually, obviously, like I said, I come from a rural community, and truthfully, I wouldn't be where I am today if people didn't pay it forward and help me in some capacity, right? And so, I've always had a heart of service, and so, I've always been real, generous and trying to, be faithful and giving and paying it forward and things like that. And a friend of mine named Leilani, I used to always donate to her organizations or whatever. She posted something on social media, I would always donate, sign me up, what can I do to help? And then so she and I obviously started developing a relationship through my giving and just interactions on social media. And then we got to where we started meeting for coffee. And she was like, hey, I think you should be on our board. She was like, you already do everything board members do, because I've also done nonprofit socials to increase engagement in the community and things like that. And she was like, hey, you should definitely be on our board. We would love to have you. We need some diversity and things like that. And so I met the executive director, and we obviously hit it off. And then they were like, yeah, let's get the ball rolling. And so it's been a couple months. It's been great so far.
Okay, that's real good. So what inspired you to even go down that lane?
Well, truthfully, I have aspirations of starting my own nonprofit.
Okay.
I want it, geared towards kids. One of my favorite quotes is that Frederick Douglass quote: "It's easier to build strong men than to repair broken ones."
Yeah.
So I'm all about being proactive, and I want to, even within the area here in Northwest Arkansas where it's so affluent, food insecurity is really bad, basic literacy is really bad. So how can we proactively set these kids up for success? Because if they don't have nutrition, they're not going to learn anything in school. If you don't learn anything in school, chances are you're going to prison, right? So if we don't pay it forward on the front end, we're going to end up taking care of these kids on the back end with our tax dollars, right? And so, truthfully, I have aspirations of starting my own nonprofit one day. So I want to learn as much as I can. So that's another reason why I'm heavily engaged with nonprofits, because at the end of the day, it's about impact. So when I get started with my nonprofit, I want to miss as many roadblocks as I can to ensure my impact is as great as it can be.
Okay. So let's take it back a step. Where'd you go to college at?
I played basketball in college. I went to two different schools. I went to Eastern Oklahoma State College in Wilburton, Oklahoma. I played basketball there for 2 years, got my associate's degree in computer science, and then I received a basketball scholarship to Henderson State University, where I finished up my playing career and got my bachelor's in general studies and business.
Okay. So how did you feel you said you majored in computer science and you had an emphasis in business when you went to get your bachelor's? How do you feel like that helps you out now?
Truthfully, if I'm being 100% honest, I didn't feel like I retained a lot in college. I just, I don't know if it's just a personality thing or what, but I just don't learn a lot of memorizing stuff and things like that. Truthfully, I felt like I was behind when I graduated college. So I don't, it taught me how to think critically and kind of problem solve, but I didn't really, obviously I believe in education and things like that, but I wouldn't say my major or anything really applies to what I do now. I learned a lot on the job. Obviously I wasn't a supply chain major, but I still haven't used A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I would say that it's helped me a lot in what I do now in my day-to-day job.
Okay. So kind of help me understand, how did you get to work for the number one country in the world?
Number one company? So when I was working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, I was checking a guy into a car, a guy named Jared Crabtree. He's a general regional manager with Walmart now for our central division. I was checking him into a car, and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about working for Walmart? He was like, we're always trying to recruit young talent. He was like, I've seen you around here for a while. He was like, he was actually sold me on the pay of store operations. He said, hey, a lot of our store managers make $300,000-$400,000 a year. He was like, so that's obviously life-changing money. And I come from rural Arkansas. I don't know anybody making $300,000-$400,000 a year. So I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. And so he was like, email me your resume. my resume, and he had some people contact me a couple weeks later, and then I started Walmart, November 23rd, 2013.
Okay, sounds real good. So what would you say has been the biggest challenge since you've been up on the board?
The biggest challenge. I've only been to one board meeting, and I would say the one thing that I walked away from that was a challenge is two things. One, obviously we're going through some accounting challenges, right? So data and accuracy, so if you don't have accurate data on some stuff, then it's harder to make decisions, right? So that's one challenge. And the second challenge is, not being able to help everybody, right? Obviously, limited resources is always a challenge in every capacity for every organization, right? So I think those are just the biggest challenges, but truthfully, the way my job is, it's all about optimizing your resources, right? So I'm conditioned to solve problems and get the biggest bang for my buck. So I'm just gonna try to use my expertise and what I do at Walmart to apply it at the nonprofit to make sure we have a great impact on the people we serve.
Okay. So I don't know if most people really understand how important nonprofits are and how much they really give back. So what advice would you give to people to help them understand just how important they are?
I would say that obviously we live in a very polarizing world where resources are definitely limited, right? Obviously nonprofits, they are exactly what you say, nonprofits. So the people who are generous by donations, the people who are helping bring about awareness to these organizations and things like that, I think that's huge because at the end of the day, nonprofits bridge the gap to what our government-funded institutions can't do, right? So especially here in Northwest Arkansas, we have nonprofits that obviously focus on food insecurity. We have nonprofits here that focus on basic literacy, financial literacy, and all the above. So I think that the reality is for all of us is none of us gotten where we are today without somebody helping us along the way, and we definitely need to apply that. We need to definitely establish and maintain a culture of continuing to pay it forward in our own circles of our peer groups and et cetera.
Okay. So I also know you do some mentorship too. Tell me a little about that.
Yep, so I just actually, a couple weeks ago, launched a BIPOC mentor circle with the University of Arkansas. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And the same logic applies. It's all about paying it forward, right? Because I would not be where I am today if people didn't pay it forward with me. And so I definitely want to continue paying it forward, especially for people of color, right? Obviously, a lot of organizations are talking about diversity and inclusion. So when I hear those words, I automatically think opportunities for people that look like me. So what can I do to help people be prepared to take advantage of those opportunities is my approach there. So just launched that here at the U of A a couple weeks ago. So definitely excited about that. But truthfully, I've even told my executive leadership team at Walmart is that it's great that we're targeting big universities like the University of Arkansas. It's great that we're targeting HBCUs because I'm pretty sure you just participated in the HBCU summit that took place yesterday. It's great that we're doing all of those things, but I also feel like we need to target kids in rural communities, right? Like Henderson State University, where I graduated from. So that's another institution that I'm planning to launch this nonprofit with. So I have a meeting with the Associate Dean next week because I feel like if we as a Walmart, as an organization, really want to impact racial equity, we can definitely start in our own backyard by targeting these kids in rural communities because we're more likely to retain them or convert them to full-time employees and retain them long-term. And not only is that good for the organization's culture by converting and retaining people, but it's also beneficial for those kids that come from rural communities like me because we become a beacon of hope and we show kids that there is a way out.
That's a real good answer. I came from a small community too, so what you say was the biggest challenge for you coming from a small community? Northwest Arkansas is just not a big city, but it's a bigger place than where we came from.
So yeah, exactly. So where I'm from, this is the city, right? So I would say the biggest challenge is it goes back to those resources. When you have limited resources and you're stuck in that bubble, you don't know life outside of that bubble, right? So that was a big challenge for me because, where I grew up, it was only Black white people.
Mhm.
It was, you know, in the time that I grew up, it was pretty, you know, segregated, I would say, to a degree. And so, you know, coming to a bigger area like this, where it's more diversity, different trains of thought, like people from all walks of life. So that was something to get used to, but it actually made me a better person, right? And that's what it's about at the end of the day. So I definitely encourage people, get outside of your comfort zone, talk to people you wouldn't normally talk to, because you have, truthfully, you can learn something from everybody you engage with. And I think that's what, people from my community, and I think all of us, should be more intentional about.
Okay. So now tell us what do you do for Walmart?
Currently, I'm a senior replenishment manager. So I basically manage inventory, manage product from end to end of the supply chain. So a lot of the products that I support are produced in places like China, but as soon as it hit the mainland of the United States, I'm responsible for it, right? And so, so basically I move product through our supply chain to make sure we have, the right quantities at the right place at the right time, so we can service our customers in those rural communities, right? So that's what I've been doing. The majority of my career has been supply chain replenishment. I've worked in store operations for about 1.5 years, but the other 7.5 years with Walmart has been supply chain replenishment.
Okay. So what would you tell somebody that's looking forward to having a career in like supply chain or replenishment? What are some things that they should be doing right now, thinking about?
I always tell people to focus on, a couple things that are transferable in every role. So, regardless of what you do, you have to be able to communicate,
Mhm.
right? So knowing how to talk to people, that goes back to me saying, start engaging people who don't look and think like you, right? Because you can learn something from them. And then just knowing how to communicate with, people who don't think and look like you. So knowing how to be an effective communicator translates to being a good influencer, right? Because everyone I know that's successful can do both, right? And so that's what I always encourage all of my mentees to start with, like simple stuff of knowing how to communicate and knowing how to influence. Because truthfully, learning these jobs is not hard. It's not rocket science, right? If you can figure out A squared plus B squared,
Yeah.
equals C squared, you'll be fine, right? So that's where I would always start, because then, truthfully, even within Walmart, we have a lot of mentorship programs to where, you're being onboarded, where people are teaching you how to do the job. And like I said, none of this stuff is super complex, but knowing how to communicate to somebody what your needs are, your learning styles, and et cetera, and influence people to make sure they're giving you the resources you need to be successful is what's gonna lead to you being successful. So I always encourage people to start there.
Okay. You actually touched on something to pivot into the next question. So how important is it to know how to network effectively and also figure out what person has the resources that you need?
That's the biggest thing, like being able to effectively network. Like, you have to get outside of your comfort zone and don't feel like a bird. You have to talk to people, and just having simple, small conversations with people in passing, learning about people, and then you just kind of throw in there what you're working on, what you're looking to do, and things like that. And most people will just volunteer information, say, hey, I know somebody who can help you with this, or have you thought about doing this, or have you been exposed to this, and things like that. So I definitely think networking is so important, because the same thing applies in our personal lives. Like, show me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. So the people that you engage with are the people the people you engage with the most are the people who influence your perspective the most. And typically your perspective drives results every day of the week, right? So, so it's definitely important to have a solid group of people that you can leverage to make sure you're staying on the right track and you have the resources you need so you can be successful. It's a very uncomfortable muscle to work, but it's definitely needed to be successful, in a very fast changing, complex world that we live in.
Okay. What could you tell somebody that comes in and they feel like they got imposter syndrome or they got a code switch? How can you tell somebody that they can be their self, but you might have to tweak this or that, but you can still be your authentic self?
I always tell people this. I know, and I haven't worked in every area of Walmart, right? But I'll say this in full transparency, I've never felt like I could not be myself, right? And I always tell people this: you have to be yourself so you can yield great results. Like, nobody is happy or comfortable when they're living a constrained life. Like, there's a difference between adapting to your environment and conforming to other people's values that you don't believe in. So I always encourage people to make sure whatever company you're working for, whatever group you're engaging in, make sure you can be yourself, because that's how you add value to the world. Don't conform to other values that you don't believe in. Like, obviously in corporate America, you have to adapt to the environment, right? So like, obviously professionalism, right? You can't be at work cussing and stuff like that. Like there's a difference, right? But I would always encourage people to, it's like, hey, God made you uniquely you, so you can add value to the world and live out His divine plan, right? So if you're in a situation to where you don't feel like you can be yourself, you should definitely have conversations with, whoever you report to, or more importantly, you should really question if that's the environment you want to be in and you can be yourself.
Okay. So for your nonprofit, I'm gonna put back up over to that. In the next 5-10 years, what are some things that you want to be doing?
I definitely want to be, in the next 5-10 years, I would definitely want to have a bigger impact on food insecurity, basic literacy, financial literacy, and continued mentorship for older adults, right? Obviously the first three I mentioned, that would be for younger kids, and the last one would be for kids that are transitioning from college, getting ready to get into the professional setting. I don't think those things will ever change. I think I'll always have a handle on those areas in some capacity. But in the perfect world, I've been learning a lot since I've been connecting with more people in the nonprofit space. And one thing that I'm currently trying to figure out is, we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have so many different nonprofits that touch on so many different things. So a large part of me is thinking like, hey, I don't need to try to reinvent the wheel. How do I bring about connectivity to where we're more targeted or more surgical in our approach, so we can have a greater impact versus us having a duplication of efforts in this space? Because at the end of the day, it's all about impacting people, right? So I'm trying to figure out what part I can play to bring people together to increase the impact.
Okay, I want you to further go up on food insecurity, because I'm working in food now, and I found out food insecurity is more than just not having food. Because my freshman year, I was eating burgers and pizza every day when I went to the cow. But I figured out you actually need something that's good for your body, or you still can have food insecurity. So could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm not real versed in nutrition, but no, you're absolutely right. It's bigger than just having food to eat, because at the end of the day, it's about having the right food to eat. And it's funny you say that, because me and my brother just talked about nutrition like 45 minutes ago before I got here, and I was telling him, he was telling me about Dana White, how he's completely transitioned his health, and he's in his 50s, but he looked like he's 30 now. He's got like abs and everything else, and we were talking about proper nutrition, and I started laughing. I was like, yeah, it makes me think about what primetime Deion Sanders always said. You look good, you feel good, you feel good, you play good, they pay good.
Yeah.
And you're right. So, and it all starts with you eating the proper things to make you feel happy and whole. I mean, you look good because you're consuming the right things, right? Probably living a healthy lifestyle. And then that obviously increase your performance, has an impact on your performance. And that obviously has an impact on your financial well-being as well. So I definitely think, like to your point, it's definitely, it's not, it's definitely what you eat.
Okay. Now before we get to the last segment of the show, I'm talk about you playing basketball. So tell me what position you play.
I play point guard and shooting guard. So when I was at Eastern Oklahoma State College, I was playing a little bit out of position. They actually had me playing like the 3, and then when we were playing small, they had me playing the 4. I'm only like 6 feet, 100, at that time I was like 180 pounds. But then when I got to Henderson State University, I played more point guard and shooting guard. They actually recruited me to play point guard. So my first year I was primarily point guard, and then my last year at Henderson I played more shooting guard, because we had a point guard that we had recruited in. He was really well, and at that point I was really working on my shot and stuff like that. So I was more of a consistent shooter, slasher versus a point guard. But those are my 2 positions, 1 and 2.
Okay.
And all through high school, I played point guard from 9th grade all the way through senior year.
Do you think sports helps you out any in life?
Oh yeah, for sure. I credit a lot of my success in corporate America to sports, right? So it teaches you, all about hard work, right? Trusting the process, being intentional about getting better, competing, healthy competition, the concept of teamwork. All of those are important factors that translate into corporate America. And that's why I feel like, truthfully, corporate America is pretty easy. Truthfully, it's easier than being a collegiate athlete, right? But all of those skills are transferable. So I definitely encourage people to, get that sports dynamic in their life, because like I said, at the end of the day, it's transferable.
Okay. So now we're going into something like to call Fatal Five, and it's like 5 random questions I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
So the first one, if you got cut $1 million check today, what would you do with it?
Taxes already paid?
Yeah.
Taxes already paid, I'm getting out of debt.
Okay.
Getting out of debt, and then right after that, I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna invest.
All right.
Probably gonna invest in real estate.
All right. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Ooh, tell my 18-year-old self. Definitely be more intentional about the development process. Everything I just mentioned earlier, focus on those basic things: communication, influence, and continue to push yourself to grow and get outside your comfort zone. I would even say during my college experience, when I was a collegiate athlete, I only hung around athletes. When I stopped playing basketball, I had a year left of college, and I became a resident assistant, started talking to people from all walks of life. My life changed.
All right. All right. Next question I want to ask, what are some of the books that you're reading right now?
Right now, 2% Way by Dr. Myron Rose. He's a former Rhodes Scholar, NFL player, and now he's a neurosurgeon. So that's a book that I'm currently reading. And then also I'm in a community group with some guys from my church where we're reading Lead Like Jesus Revisited, where it's talking about all of Jesus' leadership characteristics and how we should try to model them, obviously, as his follower.
Okay. What is some that's a big hobby for you right now, or something that you're like really intentional about this moment?
I would say one thing that I probably do the most, I haven't been traveling as much, but I ski a lot. So obviously where I'm from, not a lot of people ski.
Yeah.
But back in 2020, right before COVID happened, one of my close buddies up here, Matt Gerald, we went on a guys trip. It was like me, him, and like 4 other guys. We ended up going to Colorado and skiing, and I completely sucked. But after that, obviously me being an athlete, I was like, I gotta get better. And so after that, man, I started, going skiing 3-4 times a year. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I enjoy most.
Okay. So what would be the best piece of advice that you ever got, or the biggest lesson you ever learned?
Oh my gosh, that's a lot. I would say this. I tell people this because I feel like it applies in everything, and it's pretty much the foundation of who I am. I'll never forget, this was several years ago. Something that happened, I won't go into details on that, but I was on the phone with my brother, and he told me, he said, man, it's not always about you. And that really made me take a step back and think about, it pretty much made me become more selfless as an individual, right? Every situation is not about me, right? And so that approach applies to who I am, because I see myself as a servant leader. And like I said, every scenario that I face, whether it's at work, it's not about me. It's about the customers that we serve in these rural communities. If something's going on within my friend group, it's not about me. It's about that dynamic. How can we resolve this, and how can we continue to have healthy relationships to where we're impacting others, right? So little stuff like that. But that's probably some of the best advice I've ever received.
Okay. Is there any place that anybody can reach out to you if they have any questions, or just want to follow you on any social media platforms?
I would say my social media is Willie, WILLIE _Hansberg, HANSBURG. Probably be better if follow me on Instagram. I'm very active on there most of the time. I'm always posting stuff about financial literacy and motivational stuff. So that would probably be the best place to reach me and stay in touch.
All right. Y'all stay focused. Y'all stay motivated. It's been Legendary Visions, and we out.